Good morning, everyone. I'm hoping you can all hear me well. If not, please don't hesitate to put something in the Q&A and let us know. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. We here in Yarmouth would like to take this opportunity to share with you the successes we have had, particularly surrounding our tax recap process. As Frank mentioned, my name is Mary Maslowski, and I'm the town clerk and the newest member of our finance team. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce my colleagues. In Yarmouth, our finance team is made up of 4 separate divisions. Andy Machado is our Director of Assessing. Maria Ruzova is our town accountant. She had planned to join us today, but had a last-minute family commitment, so we have a very capable person to fill in for her. Susan Ripley is our Treasurer Collector. And as I previously mentioned, I'm Mary Maslowski, the town clerk. Last but not least, we are led by our finance director, Ed Centio, who has fostered an environment of teamwork, cross-training, and partnership amongst all of our divisions, which in my opinion is a driving factor for our success. As I mentioned, the town clerk's office is part of the finance team here in Yarmouth, and while this is an unusual setup in most communities, it does make sense in how my division works to deliver services and achieve our division goals. This morning, you will hear from each of my colleagues about the year-round practices and procedures in each finance division, which provide the foundation for a successful fiscal year end and a successful tax rate setting process in which our town is repeatedly one of the first to successfully set our tax rate. Today, we're happy to report that our tax rate has already been approved and our combined balance sheet has been submitted. Traditionally, Yarmouth was one of the last communities to set our tax rate. This resulted in the tax bills being sent out late, which ultimately affected the timing of our tax receipts. At that time, our finance team consulted with our Bureau of Accounts representatives, then Jared Curtis and Tom Guilfoyle, and with their guidance, the team made changes to our processes, which brought us from near worst to first. Andy Machado and his team are now regularly one of the first, if not the first in the state, to set our tax rate. This early success translates to successes for each of our divisions. How does the team do it? First, we routinely check in with our Bureau of Accounts advisors in the spring. This allows for any questions or concerns to be addressed prior to town meeting and the adoption of our annual budget. This communication also ensures that there are no surprises when the final tax recap is submitted. Additionally, Jennifer Williams at the Bureau of Local Assessments works with our assessors to set a schedule that is achievable and ensures the team's success. Finally, our Bureau of Accounts and Bureau of Local Assessments representatives inform our team of any Department of Revenue policy changes when they happen. This allows the Yarmouth team time to adjust accordingly. This open and frequent communication helps drive our success. As I mentioned, we take a team approach here in Yarmouth, and each division has implemented successful processes that drive a successful tax recap procedure. I would now like to call on Ed Centio to fill in for Maria and discuss the accounting division.
My apologies, I'm a poor replacement for Maria, but I'll do the best I can. Just want to highlight some things that help streamline our processes. We have a paperless accounts payable environment that includes the invoice processing system, Schedule A, and the combined balance sheet, as was noted today. Maria, before she had to leave, submitted that yesterday. We are in the process of expanding and promoting our vendor self-service solution that we've been testing for some period of time, so that the vendors can submit their invoices directly into the system, as opposed to utilizing mail or email or other means where those particular items might lay on somebody's desk, as opposed to getting directly into our accounting system. We obviously have controls that prevent it from actually being paid until there's a number of electronic workflow checks that happen before those items are processed. And Mary, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ed. Now I'd like to call on Andy Machado to discuss the assessing division.
Good morning. Evenings that we have undertaken in order to help facilitate the recap process is our exemptions were sent to our customers pre-filled with the prior year's data, with the exception of obviously the financial data. We automated downloads, the assessing for permitting. Previously that was done manually. Adopted new growth tracking. We're currently ordering and implementing field tablets for field inspections and productivity. Also in progress, we digital signatures for exemptions, I&E statements, abatements, ownership changes, and those are just a few of the things that we've tried to incorporate to help the process along. Mary?
Thanks, Andy. Now I'd like to call on Susan Ripley to discuss the Treasurer Collectors Division.
Thanks, Mary. Good morning. Some of the Collector Treasurer's achievements have been the paperless payroll. And what we mean by that is all employees receive a direct deposit email notification. It's password protected and the pay advice is attached. We also now use treasury management through Munis, which allows our cash book and our bank statements to easily reconcile to the general ledger. And if someone is wanting to purchase a permit, a license, or a sticker, and has delinquent taxes, we can now stop the issuance of those until the unpaid bills have been satisfied. We also work with our accounting office to solicit our vendors to use EFT as their preferred payment method from the town. This reduces the issuance of checks, expedites payment to our vendors, and allows for an easier bank reconciliation. And back to you, Mary.
Thanks, Sue. And now in the Town Clerk's Division, we too have implemented a number of changes which help the team in achieving our goals. For example, unlike some communities, we have embraced technology. We've instituted the use of poll pads for our elections and our town meeting check-in. While this wouldn't seem to relate, the poll pads allow us to quickly upload election turnout, completing in minutes what used to take our staff up to 2 weeks to complete. This frees up our staff to perform other tasks and allows us to more quickly address other post-town meeting tasks, such as completing the certificate of appropriation. Additionally, we have implemented end-to-end online permitting and licensing wherever possible, and are currently in the process of replacing our Acela system with a more detailed system under OpenGov. Among other benefits, these online programs allow us to quickly and accurately process our daily cash turnovers. Additionally, any transactions which are not processed online are manually entered into the system by our staff to ensure that turnovers accurately reflect all transactions conducted each day. This simplifies our turnover process each morning and makes it easier for the collector's office to identify and track payments on a daily basis. For the next part of our presentation, we're going to have each division discuss its role in the tax recap process. Beginning with the town clerk's office, we do play a small role in the process itself. First, we maintain the information in securities and gateway. Next, we work collaboratively with the rest of the finance team and administration to prepare town meeting warrants and town election warrants based upon the proposed budget. Once town meeting has passed a budget, we complete the minutes of town meeting and prepare the certificate of appropriation. In Yarmouth, we're using the certificate of appropriation included in the DOR budget analysis recap tool template with a few additions, which Ed can highlight in a future slide. Then finally, if the town is seeking to pass an override or a debt exclusion, we will conduct the election and make all of the post-election filings as required. Next, I'd like to call on Andy to address the assessor's role.
Thank you, Mary. Again, good morning, everyone. I have to say that we were pleasantly surprised as well as honored to present to you regarding our unique success story with regards to the tax rate setting and recap approval. We were kind of surprised because we believe our success is due in large part to following the direction of the DOR. I've been doing this for over 30 years, and in any webinars or seminars or classes that we've been told, The recap process should be a collaborative process encompassing all of finance. We also use the tools and the resources that they've provided over the years. So following the DOR's recommendation is the reason that we've been so successful these past 5 or 6 years. And we thank them for their guidance. A little background first. When I started working in the town of Yarmouth, which is about 6 years ago, previously worked in 2 Cape communities, the DOR had just started an initiative to work more closely and collaboratively with communities in order to set tax rates timely. Coincidentally, Yarmouth voters had just rejected a proposal to move to quarterly billing. That sent a clear message to us that, you know, if you want to manage your cash flow a little bit better, you need to figure out some way to do it. So we had some internal discussions about how to get the tax bills out sooner than in the past. Previously, they were getting mailed out in, you know, mid-October, November, December, even January in one case. So Yarmouth, we developed a plan collectively as a finance team. And as anybody that knows that's ever played youth sports or high school, college sports, the best chance to succeed is as a team. Believe it or not, I have worked in communities where that's not the case. So we certainly would urge teamwork at any opportunity. After we formulated our plan, we talked to Tom Guilfoyle and Jared Curtis from the Bureau of Accounts. They were on board right from the get-go. They were excited about it. They helped us to refine our plan. They made some suggestions, which we incorporated into the plan. We then took the plan and we talked to Jen Williams, our BLA advisor. Jen was also very supportive. She helped us to further refine our plan, and we incorporated those changes. And this was all prior to our first submittal of our revised work plan in 2017. Some of the things that we did incorporate to help set the tax rate was our vendors. First and foremost, we contacted all of our vendors and we aligned with the 5-year cycle, and we also made sure to incorporate early setting of values. Prior to this plan being implemented, our values had with the vendors, there was a date of September 30th where they needed to complete our values. Pretty hard to get a bill out on October 1st if you're not getting your values completed until September 30th. So that was a very important piece of the puzzle. Some of the activities that we undertaken previously, they were just done on an as-needed basis, and it kind of stalled the process as a result. So we made them year-round processes. For example, our sales verifications, we now send them out on a monthly or a quarterly basis at worst. We want to get those returns, and we want to be able to do the inspections as soon after the sale as possible so we can see what was there. Our building permits, previously they were data entered after the year was over. We now do them on a monthly basis so that we can kind of monitor and see what's out there, see what's going on. As I mentioned previously, our tax form automation, our veterans and elderly, blind exemption, those are all pre-filled forms for anybody that has filed previously, with the exception, obviously, of the financial information. So for a veteran, for example, a veteran gets the form in the mail, they make 2 check boxes, they sign the form, they send it back to us. That's helped dramatically. They're very thrilled about that. Health tracking using DOI templates. As a guide, we've instituted some pick lists, etc. We pay strict reliance to our DOR devised work plan. One of the things we also did was we instituted some in-house cyclical inspections. Previously, that was done by a vendor. That enabled us to save roughly $50,000 on an annual basis. Previously, there was an appropriation made of roughly $500,000, and they came in and just blanketed the town over the course of the last year in order to do that. So that saved significantly. And finally, one of the things that we always do, when we have our classification hearing, we take the opportunity to remind the Board of Selectmen that the process of verification of residency, if they decide to adopt a residential exemption, it really can't be done that night. So we remind them whenever possible. We're in the process of instituting a workshop, so we will have that discussion 6 months prior to the actual hearing, and that helps speed things up as well. Those are just some of the things that we've done to implement it, and I can tell you that since the implementation of these and other steps, we've consistently been among the top communities in August. Some of the unintended consequences of mailing the bill in early August, all of our snowbirds that they now pay both halves of the bill prior to relocating south for the winter. So our collection rate is much better. Our seasonal businesses, they do the same due to the timing of the tax bill and their cash flow at the time they get the bill. So those are just a few of the things that we've instituted. And Mary, I'll kick it back to you.
Thanks, Andy. Now we'll call on Sue Ripley to address the Collector Treasurer's role.
Thank you, Mary, and hello again. Here in Yarmouth, the Collector Treasurer's Office has the responsibility of the bank reconciliations, the revenue turnovers, and completing the DE1 to assist in the preparation of the tax recap. In part, doing the DE1, we also maintain our debt schedule to maturity with debt runoff calculated on a yearly basis. One of the other things we have with the reconciliation, we do that during management system through Munis that we utilize, and they're trained on how to look at reconciling bank accounts. So those that have bank accounts that have high activity and credit card accounts on a daily basis are monitored against our online banking to avoid any fraudulent activity. It also makes things much easier when we do reach month end and we see the official bank statements from the banks, which again, we do paperless rather than waiting for them to come in the mail. By doing all of these checks, we're able to quickly and accurately balance, which includes an oversight by our accounting office. Our departmental revenue turnovers are done daily, which allows us to balance credit card and EFT activities. By posting to the general ledger again daily, we can produce up-to-date revenue trend information and expedite the reconciliation process. And as of today, with the July statements, we are 80% done. We just have a few more statements that we're working on. So I would think by the end of this week, we'll have all of our July statements completed. The DE1 is updated early for existing debt that we are aware of. And then after town meeting and elections, we then add any new debt exclusions and we complete the finalization by attaching the backup debt schedules. Our office also prepares the statement of indebtedness, the treasurer's year-end cash report. We also do a review with our accounting department on the outstanding receivables and the cash reconciliation, which we now, as of yesterday, have submitted to the DOR for review. And Mary, back to you.
Thanks, Sue. And now I'd ask Ed Centio to address the town accountant's role.
Hi, Mary. Thank you. Questions that have been asked as we've gone through the presentation. Just want to address some of those. Somebody asked about the number of parcels that we have. When you add up the number of parcels plus our personal property accounts, we have about 23,000 accounts in state in terms of parcel count. Obviously, we're nowhere near the number of parcels of a Boston or a Worcester or a Springfield, but we have a fairly large parcel count in that regard. I think you've heard that we use Munis for our software. The software that we used for our exemptions mailing, that's something that we built in-house to be able to utilizing a database, but we're going to be using a third-party vendor because we're also mindful of succession planning and we don't want to rely on the technical expertise of of an individual. Just going on to the portion that we're going to discuss related to the DOR template. We're using a revised version of the DOR's budget analysis recap tool. And to that tool, we've added the town clerk's certificate of appropriation and other funding sources. One of the great questions that was asked earlier was, do we have to pay the DOR anything? Are there any licensing fees? And there are none. The DOR provides this tool for free, and with some basic Excel skills, and the DOR, I believe, is promoting some of their Excel training to the assessing department, and we'll try to do that as well for other finance units, so that the basic Excel skills that are needed to put this together will be readily available. We also use a revenue trending report, and that revenue trending report looks very similar to the page 3 of the tax recap, and that allows us to input that data very quickly. And we actually look at that report at least monthly so that we can adapt our financial management to the actual local receipts that we receive. In addition, the accounting department does monthly reconciliations. Those would be the cash review of what the collector or treasurers does, as well as the receivables. And the accounting department is working for a clean and quick fiscal year-end close by the work it does, pretty much every day, weekly, monthly, so that at the end of the fiscal year, the closing of the books is not a problem. One of the earlier questions was, do we actually close the books before we submit the tax recap? This year, yes, we did. The key, though, is that you have to have, as our collector treasurer Sue Ripley described, a very bulletproof set of revenue numbers, and that's accomplished through the turnover process, the bank reconciliations, and the collaborative work of the town accountant reviewing the collector treasurer's work and both signing off on those processes. And then we also update the DOR gateway as soon as we have information. We don't wait until the last minute. So if we have any documents or any materials that we have, if we have the budget already completed for our enterprise funds or our other available funds, we update those in the tax recap. And if those might be out of line with what the DOR has expected from us in the past, as Andy mentioned, we would contact the DOR to say, hey, why don't you take a look at this? Do you see any problems, any issues we might have before we actually set the budget and have our town meeting? So this is an actual look at the DOR's budget analysis tax recap sheet. Now, our goal is to make sure that we're not over the excess or the levy limit. And if we were, the red circled area would provide a message that indicates we are over our levy limit. This section of the spreadsheet allows us to put in information about the characteristics of where we were last year versus what we anticipate will happen this year. And this is, again, we're going to start this full circle again. We're going to create this template that we're going to be using for our FY22 spreadsheet after we've set up our budget process in our financial management system and do our payroll projections, which we'll do in the next week or so. This is tab 4 of the tool. And the only thing we've added to this section of the tool is a link to the DLS website so that we can check our cherry sheet information, make sure that we're able to update that information very quickly and check it as things change. Excuse me. This is the tax recap, page 3, and it's the 5th tab in the spreadsheet. And the only thing we've done here is added our revenue amounts from a local receipt standpoint of where we were pre-COVID versus what our estimates will be for this budget. We're, again, being very conservative. We talked about our tax or our reporting. We have a number of management information reports. And this report, and the view of this particular report, is generated in such a way that it actually matches what's on the DOR's website. And this is what we provide to our management team, our Board of Selectmen, and how we try to manage where we are at any point in time with our revenues, and we adapt to where we might be throughout the year to ensure that we don't have a financial problem. And then this is tab 4 or recap page 4, where we've input information. Again, the only thing with simple updates utilizing Excel is to put in what our certified free cash was, and then how much remaining free cash we have, how much we haven't spent. The largest addition to the spreadsheet is just creating a new tab, which encompasses the town clerk's certificate of appropriation. So what we do is we use this particular tab as a way to capture our budget information, tie it out to our town meeting warrant, and the adjustments made here are reflected in the other tabs of the DOR's tax recap template. And that allows us to make sure that we're on track with how much money we can spend as we go through the budgeting process throughout the year. This tab was also added. This is similar to the tax recap B2, just looking at our other available funding sources that we can use to help manage our budget. And if you have any questions, we'd like to address them now.
So thanks, Ed. As Ed mentioned, that concludes our presentation for today. As you can see, there are some common factors to our success. We partner with our representatives at the Bureau of Accounts and Bureau of Local Assessments. We use the tools provided by DOR to meet our deadlines and achieve our goals. And each division of our finance department works collaboratively throughout the process. We consider one division's success has a positive impact on all of the others. And I guess last but not least, we do also have all of our new employees cross-trained in each of our divisions. And that helps to give everyone insight into what the responsibilities are for the other divisions within our department. And as I've mentioned, at this time, we're happy to take any questions.
And there was a question asking the number of staff members we have. So as Mary described, this is Ed Centio again, we actually have people hired into the finance department unless they have specific titles. And then we are able to rotate those individuals around. After the Great Recession, our staff was cut by 21%. And we've tried to take on more duties, as our assessor described, with less staff. He's been able to streamline his operation enough to be able to institute a cyclical inspection program. So his staff count is 4.5. The staff count in the town clerks is 3.5. The staff count in the collector treasurers is 6. And the staff count in the accounting office is 3.
And I'm not sure you're able to see all these. It looks like you touched on, I think, the software programs that you use in Yarmouth. If I'm understanding that question correctly, that is Unis, unless there are other softwares that that person was referencing. You touched a little bit on the parcels. Are there specific software you use for exemptions mailings?
We use business objects to process those exemptions, and we have a database that stores that information. But we're, as Andy described, we're working with a vendor for collecting digital signatures that will capture that information from year to year and provide that online and help us to print those documents. So we'll move away from a proprietary set of software solutions using business objects / crystal reports, and we'll be going to a vendor-supported tool. But right now it's business objects and crystal reports. There was a question about what software we use that downloads information into our CAMA or assessing system. We currently use Acela, and we built the ability to export and import that into our Vision CAMA system, and we're switching to OpenGov for our permitting and licensing, and that will have the same capability. There was a question about how do you address waiting for reimbursements requested late in June. Do you record deficits in the free cash calculation? Yes, if we, when we submit our combined balance sheet, if we haven't received those receipts, then yes, we record deficits in our free cash calculation. One question was, is there interest from residents in the residential exemption like Barnstable has? And I think there is interest. It's just not something that, and Andy can speak to this more, something that the Board of Selectmen has been willing to put forth.
I think so far to date, the Board of Selectmen as well as the Board of Assessors, their feeling is that the fairest way to tax is, matter of fact, for one, everybody taxed the same. There already is a personal property tax for non-residents, so they are paying a premium already. There also, there was a question regarding personal property, and yes, we do have a vendor to do our personal property, and that is RRC. That's both commercial. We do the residential personal property. We do that in-house, but they do our commercial personal property.
There was another question, what software did we use to produce the Schedule A? And we use the same software for all of our management information reporting to generate the different information, and that's business objects, crystal reports that can go against any database that perhaps your financial management system has. And that solution produces a Schedule A, the combined balance sheet, the CP1, CP2, and all of the different and many or certain aspects of the tax recap. There was an individual that indicated, do we use Zobrio for cash management? And we don't. We have looked at Zobrio. That seems like a really good product. We opted to use, as Sue Ripley indicated, the treasury management function that comes with Munis, which is integrated with Munis, but any cash management system where you can reduce the amount of duplicate data input between systems is a good way to go to really try to get your bank recons done quickly.
Right, and we've been using that system for 7+ years now.
There's a question regarding, are your form of lists, income and expense requests, 3 ABCs requests, sales verification questionnaires, all sent out electronically like your exemption applications? Technically, they're all created electronically. We still physically mail them out. However, we are working with a third-party vendor on collecting all of the email addresses and sending them out electronically. Ultimately, that's what we would love to be able to do is create them electronically, press a button, and email them to everybody. And that's what we're working towards.
Andy, there was also a question about the new growth from the utility companies.
Utility companies are a major component of your new growth each year. Yes, it is. We find that they frequently report major upgrades as late as August, which delays completion of our final tax recap. Again, we do have our commercial vendor, which we, RRC, which we contract with. We make sure we send all of our requests out early enough so that we generally will get the returns back in time. And we generally, they know that the company knows that we send a tax bill early, or we like to. So we generally are at the top of the list when it comes to actually doing the audit report for us, so that we do get that growth and we get it in time to submit a tax rate in July. So a lot of it is just working with your vendors that you have, talking to them, talking to the DOR. I can't really stress enough that, you know, I can recall, like I said, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and I can recall a time when, you know, you kind of didn't want to ask the DOR questions. There was sort of a taboo thing there. I can tell you that that's bunk. We've got nothing but respect for the DOR, and they are there to help us, and they often do, and it makes things much simpler in the long run. So by all means, you get any questions, run it by your representatives at the DOR. They are more than happy to help
you. I'll take this question. There was a question about how you control year-end spending. When do you cut off purchase orders, et cetera, in order to close the book so quickly? We start that process probably 1 to 2 months before the end of the fiscal year, indicating that, you know, what our timetables are, what the expectations are for each one of the departments. We're decentralized, so the departments will input either contracts or purchase orders into the system. In the June timeframe, they're actually putting in their purchase orders for the next fiscal year. So they're very keen on what they need to do for year-end spending. And our cutoff is July 15th. Either the invoices have to be processed or the purchase orders have to be in the system by that particular time frame. And, you know, just through years of repetition and conditioning of the departments, we've been able to get them to comply with that and to allow us, which allows us to close the books at the end of or at the beginning of the fiscal year as quickly as we can.
There's also a recent question about would your results be different if you billed on a quarterly basis rather than a semi-annual basis? I think the whole point of this presentation is, as I mentioned in the beginning, was that our citizens rejected quarterly tax billing. They sent a clear message to us, and they said, we do not want to pay bills on a quarterly basis. We're used to it semi-annually. We want to continue to do it. If you have cash flow issues, you need to manage them. And that is a result of why we're here today and why we're presenting. We came up with a plan to work with what we had, which was semi-annual billing, and how do we get the tax bill out quicker.
And I also want to add to that, we would still try to do our work on the same schedule. We have so much work that we have to do in the summer and then into the fall, and we have a fall town meeting. So the more we would kick the can down the road on processes such as tax recap, even if we were a quarterly billing community, that means we can't get to the other things that are demanded of us by the Board of Selectmen, our town administration, and the citizens. So we try to get our work done for everything that we do as quickly as we can, as accurately and as quickly as we can, because we know other work is ahead of us. So no, if we were quarterly billed on a quarterly bill basis, we would still try to get this done as quickly as possible. And there was a question earlier, great questions that were asked now and ahead of the presentation. One question was, do you have a fall town meeting? Well, for the last 3 years, we have had a fall town meeting, And that goes to, having to close the books and get free cash certified as quickly as possible, because our selectmen and town administration want to have that free cash number so that they can know how much they might be able to spend at a fall town meeting, as well as how much they might be able to spend from free cash at a spring town meeting. Andy, the last question is for you, June 30th or January 1st for taking new growth.
We generally, the way we do things is clearly if it's, more than the 50%, we will take it after January 1. Very rarely does that ever happen. So for all intents and purposes, it's June 30th, but very rarely do we have much between January and June.
Hi, this is Deb Wagner, their Director of Accounts, and just want to thank Yarmouth for sharing their tremendous success story with everyone today. It's just a tremendous example of teamwork, and I just want to highlight some of the things that Yarmouth touched on, not the least of which is their teamwork approach. This is something that DLS stresses is so important to the success of any community, the ability for all the departments to work together to accomplish a common goal. And Yarmouth is a great example of that. But one question that wasn't addressed in the chat with regard to cherry sheets on page 2, the cherry sheet estimates, we want you to use actuals, obviously, at the time that you submit the recap, but along the way in your budget process, you should be keeping an eye on the evolution of the state budget and looking at how those cherry sheet numbers change as the budget process goes on, and just make sure that they don't leave you with any last minute need to have a town meeting to address the budget or anything like that. And so we strongly encourage you to watch the state budget process as it evolves. And another thing that Yarmouth touched on that I want to stress is entering information into the recap as you have it. Once you have your town meeting or your council meeting to vote on the annual budget, you can be entering numbers into the tax rate recap in Gateway. That minimizes mistakes due to rushing at the last minute. You can just make sure that how things are showing in the recap is what you thought they were going to be when you were doing your budget, and so that there are no surprises at the last minute.